it's going to sound overstated. The veracity of this film nearly brought me to tears because, Dinesh, there's nothing more sacred than the trust that the American people have put into believing that our elections can be relied upon. And I just believe that whether they had the proof or not, that those record-setting voters that went by every new demographic category and supported President Trump in overwhelming numbers, and they did it based on the values of what he had demonstrated in office and what they believed he could do for them for another term. I believe they feel like their souls were raped, that their sovereignty was completely blistered apart, and that they have been unwhole in these last 2 years, being told by the media on a regular basis, and sometimes it's people on our side saying, "You're nuts. There's nothing to see here. Move along." That sort of thing.
No, I think that's right. I think the reason the left is so frightened about all this is because, quite honestly, it puts us into uncharted territory. I mean, I'm one of those Republicans who believe for many years, going back to the Reagan years, you walk into the voting booth, you pull the curtain, you vote, end of story, and you trust the process to be authentic in the same way that when you go to Wimbledon, you trust that they're not adjusting the net every time one guy, the ball moves from one side to the other. There's an honesty, integrity to the process itself. This is what has now been shattered. The Constitution says that, the electors cast their votes and then joint houses of Congress ratify those votes. It doesn't say what if it comes out later that the guy who got into office cheated, what happens then? And a little part of me wants to say, well, you just basically move on. But another part of me says, wait a minute, move on. I mean, when it came out that Lance Armstrong had cheated, they took away all his medals. So he was deprived of the fruits of the cheating. And yet we may have a guy in the White House. I'm not saying that he was the orchestrator of the cheating. He may be too out of it to even know what's going on. And maybe a ring around him told him, listen, we got this covered. You don't worry about it. You just basically try to stay awake and we'll take care of it for you. Who knows? But what I'm getting at is that this is a problematic situation because it's not very easy just to say move on. If the evidence in the movie is true, and if the amount of fraud was more than enough to tip the election, we're going to have to really take a hard look at that and what that means.
No doubt. Dinesh D'Souza, my guest, last question. Did you have a chance to show it to President Trump, and what was his response when he saw the full scale of what you'd uncovered?
We did very recently, and by the way, I want to point out that it's customary when the movie is about to come out that people do see it. In other words, it's not like we said, okay, let's go show it to Trump. No one else is going to see it, because we've sent out media screeners. You've seen it, even though the movie isn't out yet. Yeah. And so there are other people.
And that's just normal in the movie business. Those of us
it's normal in the movie business. We've done it with the other movies, and so we played it for President Trump, and I think he was blown away, because I think that this is something, it's one of those things where it's not like you suspect something and then you turn on the surveillance camera and just what you thought was true, and there it is. So he's been looking for the vindication, and I think he sees in this movie. I mean, there are other things that have provided partial vindication as well, but I think this movie seals the deal, and I think this is why he's finding it so exciting, and he's talking about it a whole lot because it's in some ways a confirmation that the movie, as you know, is not about Trump. It isn't. No. This isn't like one of those movies in which Trump is all over the movie.
Correct.
Not at all. We don't interview him in the movie. It's about the issue, but of course it has ramifications for the two candidates who contested the 2020 election.
Well, and what's really blown away is, again, I want people to remember, I started this question asking you about that super high bar that True the Vote measured all of this with. And even at that super, almost unrealistic, very, very high bar that they had to clear, they demonstrated that the election went in the wrong direction. And they only did it around, 7 cities? And where they did the geo-tracking, the mining, they could have done the entire states that were in question, not just the cities. And they could have lowered that bar in half, which would still be a very high bar, and it would have been an overwhelming landslide for the president. This is going to be, friends, I'm going to tell you, this is going to blow your mind. And more importantly, it's going to blow people's minds that have disagreed with you. My suggestion would be that you do that virtual premiere on May 7th, that you order that for your home, that you have an in-house live play-by-play. You go along with that, you watch the Q&A, and then ask your neighbors and your friends and your family members who were skeptical if they had a change of heart. And Dinesh, this is where I want to end with you. You had the Salem hosts in. Were there any changes by the end of what they saw in what you had produced?
You know, the interesting thing is when I when I came to Salem and proposed the idea of the movie and a partnership between D'Souza Media and Salem, they were like, well, we'd like to have several of our hosts in the movie. And I had to scratch my head and think, well, this is a movie about election fraud and just having a bunch of pundits in there. Is this going to be like a CNN panel where everybody like waves? I couldn't figure out how to bring them into the movie in the best way. And then I sort of had a little bit of a flash of insight, which was, look, how about if we convene the Salem hosts, we talk about the issue, but tell them nothing. Don't even really tell them why they're there. And then let them speak and film them, and then show them the evidence, but record that live. Get their complete, spontaneous, unrehearsed reaction, and then allow them to ask spontaneous, intelligent questions. Why? Because those are going to reflect the exact questions that people have in the audience.
Exactly.
So turns out the Salem hosts play a critical role in the movie. They are almost a kind of ventriloquist. They play the function of echoing the ideas that people are thinking about as they watch the movie. And so it enhances the experience immensely. And you'll see the impact on them when they see the evidence and the transforming impact, even on the skeptics, as we move toward the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And you just got to see it, friends. So go to 2000mules.com. People should check it out because we really want to get the word out. The important thing about this movie is that the truth be known, which you've done, as you've always done in your films, a superlative job of putting together. And really grateful for the time that you've taken with us to just talk it through right now.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. 2000mules.com is the website. By the way, after May 7th, the movie will be available for digital download on the Salem platform, salemnow.com, and also on the Rumble-owned platform called Locals.
Nice.
Rumble is getting behind this movie big time, which is fantastic. We have a massive social media platform that's on our side for a change. And also these, as you noticed, are uncancelable platforms. The left can't take them down.
That's the great part of it. And we're big believers in that salemnow.com thing over here at the Salem News Channel. Dinesh D'Souza, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
God bless you. Kevin McCollough coming right back. Don't go away.